activities.
Mr. Cooper, seconded by Mr. Scheer, moves that the House urge the Minister of Justice to A. Follow her government's own guidelines for ministers and ministers of state as described in Annex B of Open and Accountable Government 2015, that ministers and parliamentary secretaries must ensure that political fundraising activities or considerations do not affect or appear to affect the exercise of their official duties or the access of individuals or organizations to government, that there should be no preferential access to government or appearance of preferential access accorded to individuals or organizations because they have made financial contributions to politicians and political parties, and that there should be no singling out or appearance of singling out of individuals or organizations as targets of political fundraising because they have official dealings with ministers and parliamentary secretaries or their staff and departments. B. Apologize for the fundraising event on behalf of the Liberal Party with one of the top law firms in Canada. And C. Return all funds collected from the event, as was done in 2014, for the event involving the former Minister of Canadian Heritage. The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, it is with disappointment that I rise today to speak on this matter. It is never a good day when a minister of the Crown breaches ethical standards for which the minister is bound by. Mr. Speaker, it is particularly disappointing when that minister of the Crown is the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, someone who is bound by the highest ethical standards. Mr. Speaker, as Minister of Justice and Attorney General, the minister must not only at all times act with the highest degree of integrity, the Minister of Justice must also be seen to at all times act with the highest degree of integrity. Absolutely. Mr. Speaker, the role of the Minister of Justice and Attorney General is an important role. It is a unique role. And in that role, Mr. Speaker, a special trust is placed in the minister. And Mr. Speaker, we are here today to debate this matter because, Mr. Speaker, this Minister of Justice and Attorney General has broken that trust. Madam Speaker, it was not long ago, in fact, it was indeed only in November of 2015 that the Prime Minister, with great fanfare, unveiled Open and Accountable Government, the ethical guidelines for which ministers and parliamentary secretaries in this government are bound by. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister, in his opening letter contained in Open and Accountable Government, said, "It isn't just a matter of adopting the right rules and seeing that those rules are complied with on a technical basis. Rather, the Prime Minister said that ministers in his government would be held to a higher standard. Indeed, they would be held to the highest standard of honesty, integrity, openness, and accountability." Madam Speaker, today we will learn whether the Prime Minister meant what he said and said what he meant, or whether those words of the Prime Minister, like so many words of this Prime Minister, are merely hollow words with no meaning at all. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister's Ethics Code states that ministers shall ensure that political and fundraising advertising clearly separates fundraising from department responsibilities. And consistent with that, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister's Ethics Code provides that ministers shall not engage and converse on matters related to their ministerial responsibilities at fundraisers. Now, despite those rules, at this particular fundraiser, it was billed as a fundraiser with the Minister of Justice, not the honourable member from Vancouver Granville, despite the very clear guidelines from the Prime Minister that provide that ministers must separate their ministerial duties from fundraising. Now, admittedly, if that was all that it was, if only it was a situation where the event had been advertised as a fundraiser with the Minister of Justice as opposed to the honourable member for Vancouver Granville, I think it would be fair to say that it was a breach of the Prime Minister's Ethics Code, but a minor breach, a technical breach, something that might be attributable to sloppiness, something that certainly should not be repeated in the future, but something that would not require any further action. But of course, that's not what happened. What happened was serious, far more serious. Mr. Speaker, not only was the fundraiser advertised as a fundraiser with the Minister of Justice, the fundraiser was advertised as an opportunity for those who paid $500, an opportunity to engage the Minister of Justice on matters that pertain specifically to the minister's responsibilities as minister. You want to talk about medical marijuana, or how about physician-assisted dying legislation? Or what about missing and murdered Indigenous women, Mr. Speaker? Pay $500 and you'll have your opportunity. Madam Speaker, there is only one way to characterize this type of fundraising. It's called pay-to-play fundraising. And what this minister did was attend and participate in a pay-to-play fundraiser. But, Madam Speaker, it gets even worse, because it wasn't just any pay-to-play fundraiser for anyone to show up and pay to play. No, it was targeted to a select group of elite Bay Street lawyers to pay in return for access to the Minister of Justice to talk about issues that pertain specifically to the minister's responsibilities.
That's shameful.
And, Madam Speaker, then there's the location of the fundraiser. Tories LLP, a law firm with extensive dealings, legal dealings, with the federal government, but not only extensive legal dealings with the federal government, Tories LLP, as one of its core services, provides lobbying to clients, lobbying the federal government. And amongst its most senior partners and senior lobbyists happened to be an individual who was registered up until the eve of the fundraiser to lobby, guess who? The Minister of Justice. Madam Speaker, so much then for the Prime Minister's Ethics Code that states that ministers shall not raise funds from department stakeholders and lobbyists. Certainly, the Minister of Justice disregarded that part of the Prime Minister's Ethics Code. So let us just take a step back and look at what we're dealing with. Here we have a Minister of Justice with broad authority and power over legal matters concerning the federal government, attending a fundraiser at which attendees were invited to pay in return for the opportunity to engage the minister on matters that pertain directly to the minister's responsibilities, targeted to a select group of Bay Street lawyers, hosted at a law firm with extensive legal dealings with the federal government, including the minister's own department, that counts as one of its most senior lobbyists, someone who, up to the eve of a fundraiser, was registered to lobby the minister herself. Mr. Speaker, that's what we're dealing with. And you know what else, Madam Speaker? It stinks. It stinks. That's what it does, Madam Speaker. And, you know, quite frankly, what is very, very clear is that the minister broke the Prime Minister's ethics code. The minister broke the Prime Minister's ethics code by failing to ensure that fundraising advertising did not mix fundraising with her responsibilities as minister. The minister broke the Prime Minister's ethics code by raising funds from department stakeholders. The Minister of Justice broke the ethics code by failing to sufficiently separate her duties as Minister of Justice with Liberal Party fundraising activities. And, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Justice broke the Prime Minister's ethics code by giving at least the appearance of preferential access to government. Madam Speaker, these are not technical breaches of the Prime Minister's ethics code. These are substantial breaches of the Prime Minister's ethics code. These are multiple substantial breaches of the Prime Minister's ethics code. And, Madam Speaker, instead of taking responsibility for these multiple breaches, the minister refuses to stand up and answer even the most basic questions about this sordid fundraising affair. If the minister has nothing to hide, and if everything is above board, then the minister, as a starting point, could release the list of attendees who attended the fundraiser. But, Madam Speaker, the minister won't do that. I guess the reason, Madam Speaker, is there really is nothing that could be above board about a Minister of Justice and Attorney General participating in a pay-to-play fundraiser. Madam Speaker, Canadians deserve better than this from the Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Canadians deserve better than a Minister of Justice and Attorney General engaged in pay-to-play fundraisers. Canadians deserve a Minister of Justice who adheres to the highest ethical standards in government. Canadians deserve a Minister of Justice who is not only at all times independent, but a Minister of Justice who is at all times seen to be independent. By attending this pay-to-play fundraiser, the Minister of Justice has not only breached the Prime Minister's ethics code, the minister has compromised her independence and impugned the integrity of her office. Madam Speaker, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't note that it wasn't long ago that members on that side of the House, when they were in opposition, certainly had harsh words for the former Minister of Canadian Heritage in the previous Conservative government, the Honourable Shelley Glover. Shelley Glover, as minister, attended a fundraiser, a $50 a head fundraiser, not a $500 a head fundraiser, but a $50 a head fundraiser. And upon arriving at this fundraiser, she discovered that there were department stakeholders in attendance at the fundraiser. And what did Shelley Glover do when that happened? Well, Madam Speaker, she immediately reported the incident to the Ethics Commissioner. She took responsibility. She returned the cash that was raised from the fundraiser. And she instructed her electoral district association to be absolutely certain that in the future department stakeholders were not invited and in attendance at fundraising events. So that's what Shelley Glover did under the previous Conservative government. What has this minister done? Madam Speaker, this minister has refused to take responsibility for her actions. She has refused to answer basic questions about who was there and what was said. The minister has refused to release the list of attendees. The minister has refused to return the pay-to-play cash. And instead of at least saying, look, I at the very least made a mistake, and this is not going to happen again, the minister is lined up to attend yet another pay-to-play fundraiser, effectively thumbing her nose at the Prime Minister's Ethics Code and thumbing her nose at Canadians who expect their ministers to be open, accountable, transparent, and independent. Now, Madam Speaker, if the Minister of Justice and Attorney General took her responsibilities seriously and took the office that she holds seriously, the minister would do the right thing, stand up, apologize, and return the pay-to-play cash. Here, here. And, Madam Speaker, if the Prime Minister's Ethics Code is worth the paper that it is written on, if it is actually meaningful, if it's something more than just hollow words and hollow gestures, which sadly has become a hallmark of this young government, then the Prime Minister will insist that the Minister of Justice return the pay-to-play cash if the Minister of Justice doesn't see fit to do so herself. So, Madam Speaker, very simply, the Prime Minister's Ethics Code demands that the Minister return the pay-to-play cash, and, Madam Speaker, Canadians deserve no less. Thank you.